Good evening, friends. On behalf of Calicut Heritage Forum and its president, Professor M.G.S. Narayanan, I have great pleasure in welcoming you all to this evening of lecture of Professor K.V. Krisha Ayyar Endowment Lecture. This is the second lecture in the series which started last year. It's gratifying that so many have graced this evening's occasion despite the slight drizzle and the after effects of the political storm due to the local elections. A special word of warm welcome to Mrs. and Mr. Swaminathan, who have traveled all the way from Bangalore to attend this evening's function. Mrs. Swaminathan, she is the granddaughter of Professor K.V. Krisha Ayyar, and she and Mr. Swaminathan have been a great source of support and encouragement for us in organizing this lecture series. Mr. Swaminathan retired from the civil service after a long and distinguished career, but remains active as a mentor and advisor to various institutions. His interest in history led him to acquire an MPhil degree from University of Madras after retirement on the Tamil question in Sri Lanka. The Tamil question in Sri Lanka. That shows his interest in history. Calicut Heritage Forum would like to thank both of them for the support for conducting this lecture. Incidentally, he just discovered that he has got a batchmate of his here, Shri U.V. Eradi, who is a legend in Indian tax administration and fiscal policy. I understand that both of them appeared together on the same day for the civil service personality test in May 1957 in Kanagakunnu Palace, Trivandrum. A warm welcome to you, sir. We welcome Dr. V.V. Haridas, today's keynote speaker, who is Assistant Professor of History in University of Calicut. He took his PhD in History from Mangalore University under the guidance of Professor Keshavan Veluthat, who was the speaker last year for this endowment lecture. The topic of Dr. Haridas' lecture, research, the political culture of Zamorans, is a continuation of the legacy of Professor K.V. Krisha Ayyar. He has been able to marshal new facts and sources in his bold and adventurous study, which is soon to be published by Orient Black Swan, formerly known as Orient Longman. We look forward to hearing his insights on a topic which was the principal area of Professor Krisha Ayyar's scholarship. We also welcome Shri Abhilash Malayil, this year's Professor Krisha Ayyar Scholar. He has been selected for this award through a rigorous process from among many applicants all across the country. We received applications from researchers in Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi, Delhi University, Deccan College, Pune, Hyderabad University, Sri Shankara University, Kaladi, and Calicut University. It was possible for us to reach a large number of researchers, courtesy the online group Kerala Researchers, which circulated our notice among the students. We would like to thank its founder editor, Sri Ashok Chandran. I do not know whether he has come. He had promised to come. Who is stationed in Palghat and who has been doing this voluntary job of networking of researchers on Kerala and in Kerala. Mainly on Kerala, because we have got membership from ANU, Canberra, and many US universities. It's a growing group of young researchers, which is a very rich source for everyone to exploit. It's called Kerala Researchers. We hope to be able to encourage research on topics related to the history and culture of Calicut and to expand the scope of this award in the years to come. At present, we are offering only one scholarship, which is common for PhD and MPhil. The selection committee this year placed an MPhil researcher in the second place, just below Abhilash, and above many PhD scholars on the basis of the quality of the synopsis and the standard of published work. It was felt that clubbing together the two courses for this award was rather unfair to the MPhil students. Resources willing, we would like to have a separate scholarship for MPhil in future. This year's recipient, Abhilash, is pursuing his research at the Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences at the Indian Institute of Technology, Mandi, Himachal Pradesh. Abhilash will give a brief outline of his research here, and members of the audience, I know we have several persons who are knowledgeable on his subject, may like to interact with him on his topic. With these words, I would now request our President, Professor M.G.S. Narayanan, to deliver his presidential address.
Dear friends, Mrs. Parvati Swaminathan and Mr. Swaminathan, as mentioned here, Srimati Parvati is the granddaughter of Professor K.V. Krishna Ayyar. Then the recipient of towards today's distinguished fellowship endowment, Sri Abhilash Malayil. Then the speaker of the memorial lecture, Dr. V.V. Haridas, Dr. Oliver Noon, Sri C.K. Ramchandran, and all the friends associated here, who are meeting here. Professor K.V. Krishna Ayyar may not be familiar to many students even students of history in the present generation. He was my teacher. That was not a qualification for him. But it's a great qualification for me that I was a student of his in the intermediate classes in the then Zamorin's College. In those days, he wrote his book on the Zamorins of Calicut. That was the first history of Calicut. In those days, teachers, I hated history in my high school classes because history was just a string of names, years, and then good and bad rulers, etc., etc. It was not of any human interest to any of us. But when I came and joined the Zamorins College, and when we had Professor Krishna Ayyar as our teacher, it was a different experience altogether. He did not merely give us lectures and notes, but he took us to temples, churches, historic places, museums, etc. In those days, the practice of having study tours was not there. That was not in the air. And history meant history of India or history of Great Britain, things like that. The terms regional history, local history, etc. were not very familiar to the public. Even history of South India as such was not developed as an academic discipline. But Professor Krishna Ayyar on his own, I don't know where he got this kind of perspective, made history into a different kind of discipline and got many of his students, including me, interested in study and research of history. That was the beginning of my career as a student and researcher in history. He wrote not only the very famous standard work of on the Zamorins of Calicut, but also many other. He has, to his credit, a history of Kerala, where for the first time he got the history of the chairman Perumals. In a way, in those days, not many records and data were available, but still, whatever was available, he made use of them and wrote a book on the Perumals. I continued that work after him. He also has, to his credit, a book on the history of Guruvayur temple. That was probably the last that he published as a book. Then number of learned research articles, one on Mamakam, for instance, another on Manavikrama, the Zamorin of the 16th century, things like that. At least half a dozen of his research papers. In those days, for a teacher of history in an intermediate college in Malabar to produce and publish research papers, that was unheard of. And still he got them published in Kerala Society papers and Journal of Indian History, etc., etc. In fact, we have an idea. We have collected his half a dozen papers. We have an idea, but for certain technical problems and difficulties, we have not been able to publish them, but we would like to publish them in due course. First and foremost, the aim of this endowment arrangement is to honor the memory of K.B. Krishna Ayyar, one of the pioneers in historical research in Kerala, especially in Malabar, and one of the good authors of that period. Apart from that, we have other ideas also, that is in this Calicut Heritage Forum. I happen to be the president just because of my age, because of my long experience and association with it. But it is really Mr. Ramchandran who has been organizing it and conducting it and taking up all the correspondence related to it. The second aim of this program is to develop a younger generation of researchers in history, especially history of Kerala, history of Malabar, history of Calicut, etc. Because we are all getting old, and not many colleges and universities produce good researchers. There are many, but they are not here in Kerala, but outside. Outside Kerala, there is much interest in the history of Kerala. I have found, for example, the University of Tokyo, where I was invited to be visiting professor for a year, having at least half a dozen publications on the history of Kerala, research publications on the history of Kerala. Similarly, the University of London, where I worked for some time, 1 year, has produced a large number of papers and books on the history of Kerala. The Leiden University in the Netherlands then Harvard University in the States, United States of America. In all these places you find people, scholars, young scholars, working on the history of Kerala or different aspects of the history of Kerala, but not many in Kerala. And compared to those who show an interest and work in this field, the research, as far as I can see, is of an inferior standard in Kerala, because our universities are not real universities. They are examination centers. They are not up to the mark at all. Anyway, our second aim is to promote historical research, especially on South India and Kerala and Malabar, and to identify young researchers who promise to be good historians in future. The third idea is to publish Krisha Ayyar's research papers. They have been published in journals, contemporary journals, but they have to be brought out in book form and discussed. And fourthly, we want to generate discussion on regional history and local history connected with Malabar. So these are some of the aims with which we have started. And Mr. Ramchandran, in his retirement from the civil service, has been taking so keen interest that this has taken shape now. This is second year. Last year we had Dr. Keshavan Veluthad. He was a student of my department in the Calicut University, and did his initial research when he was a student of MA, postgraduate course in the department on the Brahmin settlements of Kerala, and that was also published later. Later on, he went to Jawaharlal Nehru University for his MPhil research, but came back to Calicut because he wanted to work with my guidance on the early history of Kerala, and he took his doctorate on the history of Kerala. And not only history of Kerala, a comparative study of the political structures of Chera, Chola, Pandya and Pallava kingdoms in South India. He did it because his interest in Kerala has been there throughout. And Dr. Haridas, who is doing the memorial lecture today, is a student of Keshavan. When he took up the subject, he had some doubts whether there will be ample material data for this. But then Keshavan encouraged him, and we also got the Granthavaris of Calicut, edited and published by Dr. N.M. Nambudiri. That's a mine of information on the Calicut region and the Zamorin's also. He could make use of that and many other sources which were not available when Krisha Ayyar published his book on Calicut in 1938. So this is a happy occasion for us. He belongs to the new generation of Kerala historians, who is in a way connected with Krisha Ayyar through the history of Calicut. You know, Dr. Oliver Noon is a medical doctor, but he has been taking so much interest in history. Even when he was in the United Kingdom, in England, for many years, practicing as a doctor, he spent much of his time and much of his money on collecting source materials for Kerala. All kinds of obscure sources have been brought out by him. We are thankful to him for that. So I don't have much to tell you because this is going to be an important function. Now I invite Srimati Parvati